On a quiet night in Chicago, a police officer pulled over a woman for no apparent reason. He had no idea that within minutes his entire career would come crashing down. What mistake did he make? And how did a single phone call turn the tables on him so quickly? Stay tuned as we uncover a shocking tale of abuse of power, instant karma, and the fight for justice. How would you handle this situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Police car scales on fire. Chicago at night was still bustling, the yellow glow of the streetlights casting long shadows on the crowded streets. Inside a sleek black sedan, cruising down a tree-lined road, Olivia Brooks kept a firm grip on the steering wheel, her sharp eyes focused ahead. As an experienced civil rights attorney, she had just wrapped up an important meeting on police reform, but she had no idea that in just a few minutes she would become the central figure in a shocking incident. Inside the car, Olivia had her Bluetooth connected, still engaged in a conversation with Judge Richard Coleman, a trusted colleague. "Olivia, I don't understand why the government isn't pushing reform faster. Don't they see these violations keep happening?" "Coleman, you know how it is. Changing the system has never been easy, but I believe we're heading in the right direction." Suddenly, the flashing red and blue lights in her rearview mirror snapped Olivia out of her thoughts. A patrol car tailed her closely, sirens blaring. "Coleman, what's going on, Olivia?" "Olivia, I just got pulled over. I didn't do anything wrong." She carefully pulled to the side of the road, taking a deep breath. This wasn't the first time she had been stopped, but something in her gut told her that this time would be different. Outside, Officer Chad Henderson, a tall, imposing man with a stern expression, stepped out of the patrol car, his hand resting on his holstered gun. "Henderson, license and registration." Olivia met his gaze, sensing the tension rising in the air. The cool night air carried the distant hum of the city, but for Olivia Brooks, everything had gone silent, except for the pounding of her heart. She had done nothing wrong, no speeding, no traffic violations, yet here she was, being pulled over. Years of experience told her that these situations could escalate quickly, and she needed to remain calm. She rolled down her window as Officer Chad Henderson approached. His heavy boots thudded against the pavement, his presence imposing under the harsh glow of the streetlights. "Henderson, license and registration." His voice was cold, devoid of the usual courtesy officers used during routine stops. Olivia studied him for a second before reaching into her glove compartment. "Olivia, good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" "Henderson, license and registration." He ignored her question entirely, his jaw tightening as he extended his hand impatiently. Olivia took another deep breath, suppressing the irritation bubbling inside her. She had handled countless cases of police misconduct. She knew the signs, and she recognized them in Henderson. Keeping her movements slow and deliberate, she handed over her documents along with her law credentials. "Olivia, I'm attorney Olivia Brooks. I'd appreciate it if you could tell me why I'm being stopped." Henderson barely glanced at the papers before shoving them back at her. "Henderson, step out of the vehicle." Her eyebrows lifted. "Olivia, excuse me?" "Henderson, I said step out of the vehicle. Now." A flicker of something dark passed through his eyes. Annoyance, maybe even hostility. Olivia glanced at his hand, which was still resting on his gun holster. She knew better than to push back too hard, but she also wasn't about to let this man trample over her rights. "Olivia." "Officer, I have not been informed of any reason for this stop. Am I being detained?" Henderson's jaw clenched, his fingers twitching slightly. "Henderson, step Outside, now. A sharp click echoed as he unfastened the strap of his holster. That was enough. Olivia wasn't about to get herself killed. Slowly, she unbuckled her seatbelt and pushed the door open. She kept her hands visible, stepping onto the pavement with measured composure. Olivia, I'm complying, officer. There's no need for aggression. A few passers-by had stopped to observe, their curious gazes now shifting into concern. Some pulled out their phones, recording. Henderson ignored them, grabbing Olivia's arm roughly and twisting it behind her back. Olivia, hey, what are you doing? Henderson, resisting arrest, huh? You people always think you can talk your way out of everything. Her breath caught. You people, she had heard it before. She had defended clients who had been victims of men like him before. But now, she was the one being thrown against the hood of a police car, cold metal cuffs snapping around her wrists. The whispers around them grew louder. Bystander 1. Yo, that's Olivia Brooks, the lawyer. She's on the news. Bystander 2. Man, this is messed up. Somebody live-stream this. The murmurs turned into outcries as the crowd grew. Henderson didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he didn't care. Henderson, you think your fancy lawyer badge gives you immunity? Not tonight. Olivia, voice steady despite the anger in her chest. You're making a mistake, officer. A big one. Henderson smirked. Henderson. Oh, yeah. And what's that? Olivia, lifting her chin, her voice sharp as steel. You just unlawfully detained a civil rights attorney. And my phone? It's still connected to a federal judge. For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. Henderson, you're bluffing. From inside Olivia's car, her Bluetooth speaker was still connected. The faint sound of a muffled voice, Judge Richard Coleman's voice, could now be heard. Coleman, over Bluetooth. Officer, I suggest you let Ms. Brooks go. Immediately. Henderson stiffened, his grip tightening on Olivia's wrists before abruptly releasing them. Olivia, turning to face him, her confidence unwavering. Now, are you sure you want to go through with this arrest? He swallowed, his eyes darting toward the growing crowd. The countless cell phone cameras pointed directly at him, and, most importantly, the flashing red and blue lights of another squad car pulling up. He had lost control of the situation, and he knew it. For a brief moment, the world around them seemed frozen. The only sound was the quiet but unmistakable voice of Judge Richard Coleman echoing from Olivia's car through the still-connected Bluetooth speaker. The weight of that voice was undeniable, and for the first time since the stop began, Officer Chad Henderson's smug expression wavered. Coleman, over Bluetooth. Officer, I repeat, release Ms. Brooks, immediately. Olivia stood tall, her wrists red from the cuffs, but her resolve unshaken. Around them, the crowd had grown larger, with more people holding up their phones, recording every second. Some were even live streaming. The murmurs of outrage turned into direct confrontation. Bystander 1. Yo! That's a federal judge on the line, man. You messed up. Bystander 2. This dude just arrested a civil rights lawyer on camera. He's done. The tension in Henderson's jaw tightened as his eyes darted around. He was losing control and he knew it. But instead of backing down, his grip on his authority tightened. Henderson, low to Olivia. I don't care who you think you are. You're under arrest. He reached for his radio. Henderson into radio. Dispatch. I have a suspect in custody. Bringing her in now. Before he could finish, another set of red and blue lights flooded the street, followed by the screech of tires. A second squad car pulled up fast, but this wasn't just another patrol unit. Stepping out was Captain Raymond Carter, a seasoned officer with over 25 years on the force. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and commanded respect the moment he stepped onto the scene. "Captain Carter, what the hell is going on here?" His voice boomed across the street, silencing the commotion. Henderson hesitated, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Henderson, sir, Captain Carter," cutting him off, pointing at Olivia. "Is that Olivia Brooks?" The captain turned his sharp gaze toward Olivia, his expression shifting from anger to realization. Olivia, breath steady, chin lifted. "That's right, Captain. And your officer just unlawfully detained me." Captain Carter's face darkened as he turned back to Henderson. "Captain Carter, you arrested a civil rights attorney? Without cause?" Henderson, defensive. "She was resisting." Bystander 3, laughing, waving his phone. "Nah, man. We got the whole thing on video. She didn't resist nothing." Captain Carter inhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. Then he turned toward the patrol car, where Olivia had been placed. "Captain Carter," to another officer, "get those cuffs off her." "Now." The officer hesitated for half a second, but under the weight of Carter's authority, he moved fast. He reached in, unlocking the cuffs around Olivia's wrists. She rubbed them briefly before stepping forward, her voice calm but firm. "Olivia, Captain, I suggest you call Internal Affairs before this gets any worse for your department." Captain Carter clenched his jaw. He knew exactly what she meant. Henderson, meanwhile, still hadn't fully processed what was happening. Henderson, desperate. "Sir, she was disrespecting authority. Captain Carter, coldly, "Shut up, Chad." Henderson's mouth snapped shut, the power dynamic between him and his superior shifting in real time. He had made a mistake, a fatal one. Just then, Olivia's phone buzzed. She checked the screen. Unknown number. She knew exactly who it was. She pressed answer. Coleman, over the phone. "Miss Brooks, are you all right?" Olivia, glancing at Henderson, voice smooth. "I'm fine now, Judge. But you might want to tune into the news tonight." She hung up, slipping the phone back into her pocket as she turned to Captain Carter. "Olivia, are we done here?" Captain Carter exhaled, then nodded. "Captain Carter, you're free to go, Miss Brooks, and you have my apologies." But Olivia wasn't done yet. Olivia, raising an eyebrow. "That's nice, Captain, but an apology isn't going to cut it. What about him?" She gestured toward Henderson, who looked like he was about to explode. The crowd was still watching. The cameras were still rolling. Captain Carter turned back to Henderson, and for a long moment, there was silence. Then, with a sigh, he lifted his radio. Captain Carter, into radio. "Dispatch, this is Captain Carter. Effective immediately. Officer Henderson is relieved of duty, pending an internal affairs investigation. Send a unit to escort him back to the station." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Henderson, for the first time, looked like he might actually panic. "Henderson, you can't do this." "I didn't." Captain Carter, low, final. "You did this to yourself." A different officer approached Henderson, taking his badge and gun. He stood frozen, his hands shaking with rage, but there was nothing he could do. Meanwhile, Olivia adjusted her blazer, smoothing out the creases, before turning back to the crowd. "Olivia," to the bystanders, a slight smirk forming. "I think we all just witnessed why police reform is necessary, didn't we?" Laughter and cheers rippled through the group as Henderson was led away. Instant karma had done its job, and Olivia, she had just turned what could have been a nightmare into a national conversation. Bystander 4, grinning. "Yo, Ms. Brooks, you just made history." She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of what had just happened. Olivia, smiling but serious. Let's hope it changes something. As she walked back to her car, her phone buzzed again, this time from reporters wanting a statement. She sighed, shaking her head. The fight wasn't over. But tonight, justice had won. The night was far from over. Olivia sat in her car, still processing the last few minutes. Chad Henderson had been stripped of his badge and escorted away in disgrace. But Olivia knew how these things worked. One bad cop losing his job wasn't enough. The real battle was about to begin. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Judge Coleman. It was a reporter from Chicago News Network. She hesitated for a moment before answering. Reporter. Ms. Brooks, we just saw the video of your arrest. It's already trending nationwide. Would you like to make a statement? Olivia glanced at the crowd, still lingering, discussing what had just happened. Olivia. Not yet. But I will soon. She hung up and took a deep breath. She needed to act fast. Less than an hour later, Olivia was inside Chicago Police Department's Internal Affairs Division, sitting across from Detective Marcus Reed, a seasoned investigator known for going after corrupt cops. Reed, leaning forward, voice measured. Ms. Brooks, first of all, I want to apologize for what happened tonight. Olivia crossed her arms. Olivia, I don't need an apology, Detective. I need action. Reed nodded, sliding a thick folder across the table. Reed, you're not wrong. We started looking into Henderson's history as soon as Captain Carter put him on leave. What we found is troubling. Olivia flipped through the files. Multiple complaints of racial profiling and excessive force. Several arrests where charges were mysteriously dropped. Ties to a known private security firm suspected of illegal surveillance. Olivia, raising an eyebrow. And yet, he was still on the streets. Reed sighed. Reed. Unfortunately, without concrete proof, Internal Affairs can only do so much. Henderson always found a way to slip through the cracks. Olivia's jaw tightened. Olivia, then let's make sure this time he doesn't. The next morning, the footage of Olivia's arrest had spread like wildfire. Major news outlets were covering it, and social media was ablaze with outrage. By noon, the mayor of Chicago was forced to issue a statement. Mayor, stern, reading from a press release. We take the issue of police misconduct very seriously. Effective immediately, we are launching a full-scale investigation into the practices within the department. It was a political move. Olivia knew that. But it was a step in the right direction. That afternoon, she walked into the office of State Attorney Michelle Adams, a longtime advocate for police reform. Adams, gesturing to a chair. Sit down, Olivia. You're making waves. Olivia, sitting, voice firm. That's the plan. Adams folded her hands. Adams, the mayor wants to handle this quietly. I assume you have no interest in letting that happen. Olivia smirked. Olivia, absolutely not. Adams chuckled, but then grew serious. Adams, Henderson's a symptom, not the disease. If we don't dig deeper, another officer just like him will take his place. Olivia, nodding. That's why we need to expose everything. Later that night, Olivia received an anonymous email. The subject line sent chills down her spine. Subject, you're looking in the wrong place. Attached were documents connecting Henderson to a larger corruption ring within the police force. Bribes from private contractors, false reports filed to protect officers from complaints, links to a powerful business group with interests in privatizing local policing. Olivia's hands clenched around the phone. This was bigger than she thought. She immediately dialed Reed. Olivia. Detective, I have something you need to see. Meet me at my office. Now. Reed arrived within 20 minutes, his expression tense, as Olivia showed him the files. Reed, whistling low. This changes everything? Olivia, if Henderson was involved, who else is dirty? Reed sighed, rubbing his temples. Reed, looks like we just opened a Pandora's box. Olivia's jaw tightened. Olivia, good. Let's blow the whole thing wide open. The next morning, Olivia Brooks walked into Chicago's state court, the air thick with tension. She had spent the past 24 hours compiling everything: the files from internal affairs, the anonymous documents linking Chad Henderson to corruption, and the video evidence that had sent the internet into a frenzy. Now, it was time to make sure this case didn't get buried. Seated across from her in the courtroom was Henderson's defense attorney, a sharp-dressed man who looked like he specialized in cleaning up dirty cops. And beside him, Henderson himself. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by barely contained rage. At the prosecutor's table, State Attorney Michelle Adams flipped through a thick case file. She had agreed to press charges against Henderson, and today was his first hearing. Judge Reynolds banging his gavel. This court is now in session. Officer Chad Henderson, you are charged with misconduct, unlawful arrest, and abuse of power. How do you plead? Henderson's attorney stood. Defense attorney, Your Honor, my client maintains that his actions were in line with standard police protocol. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the courtroom. Olivia clenched her fists, but kept her expression neutral. Adams didn't hesitate. Adams, standing up. Your Honor, we have video evidence, witness testimony, and internal reports proving otherwise. She gestured toward a TV monitor, where the footage of Henderson forcing Olivia against her car played in front of the entire courtroom. Olivia, in the video. You're making a mistake, officer. A big one. Henderson's jaw tightened as the video continued, showing Captain Carter arriving, hearing Judge Coleman's voice over the Bluetooth speaker, and ultimately stripping Henderson of his badge. Adams, turning back to the judge. Not only was Ms. Brooks unlawfully detained, but Officer Henderson was also found to have a history of misconduct, one that Internal Affairs failed to act on, until now. The judge studied the evidence in silence. Then he turned to Henderson. Judge Reynolds. Officer Henderson, given the weight of this evidence, your claims of following protocol hold no merit. Bail is denied. You will remain in custody until trial. Henderson slammed his fists on the table. Henderson, furious. This is a damn setup. The judge's gavel banged loudly. Judge Reynolds, that's enough. Security officers approached, leading Henderson away in handcuffs. Olivia watched as he struggled against them, his career and his power gone in an instant. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Olivia. Reporter, Miss Brooks, how do you feel knowing the officer who arrested you is now facing charges? She took a deep breath before answering. Olivia, firmly, this isn't just about me. It's about every person who has ever been unlawfully detained, harassed, or mistreated by officers like him. This case isn't the end. It's the beginning of something bigger. She turned away, heading down the steps, knowing the fight for justice was far from over, but tonight at least she had won. The story of Olivia Brooks serves as a powerful reminder that standing up against injustice is never easy, but it is always necessary. It highlights the importance of knowing your rights, especially in situations involving authority figures who may abuse their power. One key takeaway is that documentation is a powerful tool. In this case, social media, bystander videos, and recorded evidence played a crucial role in exposing wrongdoing. In real life, if you ever witnessed or experience injustice, recording incidents when legal, reporting them, and using legal channels can create real change. Additionally, this story emphasizes the need for systemic reform. Henderson wasn't just a single bad cop. He was part of a larger issue within law enforcement. Change happens when citizens demand accountability and when leaders like Olivia push for real policy shifts. So, what can we do? Educate yourself on your rights. Knowledge is protection. Speak up and support reform efforts. Change doesn't happen in silence. Hold authorities accountable, whether through voting, advocacy, or legal action. Justice isn't automatic. It takes courage, persistence, and collective action to make a difference. Like Olivia, we all have a role to play. Today's story isn't just about one wrongful arrest. It's a powerful reminder of the importance of justice and accountability. It shows us that staying silent in the face of abuse only allows it to continue, while taking action can lead to real change. So, if you were in Olivia's position, what would you do? Would you stand your ground and fight for justice, using the law to defend your rights? 1. Or would you stay silent and avoid the risk, even if you knew you were right? 2. Drop a 1 or 2 in the comments below and share your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps bring more meaningful stories to light. Police Car Scales Conversation.